I recently had the chance to speak with both Auston Matthews and Sidney Crosby ahead of Four Nations Face-Off. And also, let's talk about trades once again because the NBA decided to send shockwaves throughout the sports world, and maybe the Devils can learn a thing or two. We have a lot to break down in today's episode of Locked On Devils. Buckle up, everybody.
You're Locked On Devils, your daily podcast on the New Jersey Devils. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi, this is Bryce Salvador, and you're Locked On Devils with Trey Matthews.
Scores! Oh, Stevens stepped up, nailed him. Brodor's got the puck. What a shot. The Devils win the Stanley Cup.
Alrighty now, what is up, New Jersey? Welcome back to the Locked On Devils podcast. Here at the Locked On Network, I'm your host, Kyle Chalky play announcer, Devils Wire Pucks and Pitchforks, and also part-time credentialed media member, Trey Matthews. When this episode goes live, the New Jersey Devils are scheduled to play the Pittsburgh Penguins, but in the meantime, we're going to talk about their recent outing against the Buffalo Sabres because, once again, a lot of people are concerned for the Devils and the stretch of games they've been putting together. It seems like they're very inconsistent, and for every step forward they take, it looks like they take two steps backwards. Or is that the case? We're going to talk about that in the first segment. Then in the second segment, we're going to talk about the Four Nations Face-Off tournament. I had the chance to attend a recent media availability for both Auston Matthews and Sidney Crosby. Auston Matthews is obviously the captain for Team USA. Sidney Crosby, captain for Team Canada. And I want to share my thoughts on Four Nations a little bit because I've been seeing people on social media, videos on YouTube surface in which people are concerned about the overall product, but I want to share my thoughts on the matter. Then in the third and final segment, speaking of social media, I think anyone who's a sports fan in general has been seeing the recent trade that took place in the NBA that sent shockwaves, not only in basketball, but just sports in general. And it leaves a lot of people wondering, how does this shapeshift the rest of sports? Because if that trade between the Los Angeles Lakers and the Dallas Mavericks proved anything, everything and anything is possible. And circling it back to hockey, a lot of people in the Devils discourse want Tom Fitzgerald to make a big move. But for right now, let's talk about the Devils' recent outing against the Sabres, in which they came out on the losing end by a score of 4-3. Here are some of my main takeaways from the game. It was an awful first period. I would say that was one of the Devils' worst performances in a particular period this season. It was pathetic. They allowed 3 goals, and the Sabres were off and running early. It was one of those instances in which the Devils put themselves into a hole and they couldn't climb out of it. Another thing that is frustrating people is that the Sabres are supposed to be one of the teams that the Devils are supposed to handle because, with all due respect to Lindy Ruff and the rest of the Sabres organization, the Sabres are one of the bottom tier teams in the Atlantic Division. So why are the Devils putting together an awful performance against one of the worst teams in the Atlantic? And I think the biggest storyline coming out of that game was determining whether or not Stefan Noesen would receive a suspension from the NHL, because in the third period, he got a match penalty because he laid a big check on Tage Thompson. If you look at the replay, you could see that Naeson's body made significant contact with Thompson's face. And something that surprised me was that nobody wanted to fight Noesen. And originally, it wasn't going to be assessed a penalty. The only reason why the referees blew their whistle was because Thompson was down onto the ground. So it forced them to look at the replay. And ultimately, Noesen got the heave-ho. And the NHL revealed this morning, as I'm recording this episode, that Noesen won't be suspended. I think what determined Noesen to be in the clear was that his skates never left the ice and he was trying to play the puck. And I think it was just bad circumstances. Now, Whether or not the hit was clean, that's totally up to you. But right now, Nason is in the clear. But the Devils, not really a good outing against the Sabres and their valiant effort of a comeback. It was just too little, too late. Now, I understand that a lot of people have their concerns once again about the Devils. I know I've been talking about it on this show. They got 3 more games before the Four Nations break. Now, like I said, people have expressed their concerns, but let me read you a thread of social media posts from Bill Spalding, the play-by-play announcer for the Devils. He said the Devils' goal margin of plus 31 is 6th in the NHL. That's a number that a lot of smart folks look at around the league to measure how strong teams are. The biggest challenge in point accumulation right now for the Devils has been close games. The Devils are 14, 12, and 6, a 531 points percentage in games decided by 2 goals or less. In games decided by 3 goals or more, the Devils are 15 and 7, 682 points percentage. He finished off and said, in my opinion, that shows that even in this recent stretch, the guys are really close to figuring it out again. As Sheldon Keefe said, the key is consistency, and that's the step this team needs to take. I even added and said that when the Devils are leading after the second period, they have a record of 24-0-2. Those 2 OT losses came at the hands of the Toronto Maple Leafs. So Bill was just basically shedding some light on the situation. And I'm also going to share a post from Daniel Moya of the Hockey Writers. He said, I'm not saying the Devils are playing well, but I would like to add there's a huge difference between, quote unquote, can't beat the Sabres versus lost to the Sabres by 1 goal, 1 time. Buffalo beat Washington by a goal too, and the Capitals are atop of the Metropolitan Division. Took down Boston 7-2, Florida 5-2. More parity in the NHL than ever. And I agree with Daniel, which is one of the reasons why I love covering hockey so much is the parity. It's not like basketball or football where the best team usually ends up winning. And keep in mind, the Devils played the Sabres to open up the season in Prague, and they came away victorious in both matchups. Back-to-back shutouts, might I add. And I want to conclude with this. The Devils are banged up. They're missing Nico Hischier, Jacob Markstrom. Luckily, Erik Haula is set to return because he was back to practicing on the third line. And I think that can also be a big help for more reasons than one. If there was any team that was in desperate need of a break, it's the Devils for right now. Because, like I said, they're missing some key assets. Jacob Markstrom has arguably been the Devils' MVP this season. Nico Hischier is the captain. The team is built around him. And the Four Nations break will allow the Devils a few more weeks to get some of their star players back. And for Erik Haula, yes, he's phenomenal in the faceoffs. And as we've assessed in the past, when it comes to faceoffs, it's very important because it gives your team possession, but he also works the corners. He's more efficient. The Devils have been playing Justin Dowling in wake of some injuries. Like, remember, Curtis Lazar missed significant time, and now it was Erik Haula. So Justin Dowling fills that role. And with all due respect to Dowling, he's a career AHL player. He should not be an everyday third line center. Erik Haula, at least in my opinion, is miles better than Dowling, and I think that can help the team. So I get the frustration, but just keep in mind the Devils' worst is still better than most people's best, and I think they're going to turn it around similar to what Bill alluded to. So it just takes patience. Now, are they a championship caliber team? Probably not, but the goal for the Devils is to get back to the playoffs and at least make it past the first round. If Tom Fitzgerald is able to make a move come the deadline and add some more depth, I think the Devils can be a dangerous team, but we'll just have to wait and see. I think what's really going to be telling for the Devils is how do they finish off the season? That's my takeaway from all of this. All right. We're going to talk about Four Nations momentarily, but before we continue, let me tell you guys about FanDuel. Super Bowl 59 is here. One game, two teams, endless possibilities, and there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. Whether it's predicting the first touchdown, calling the MVP, or even betting on the coin toss, FanDuel makes it easy to get in on the action with live betting all game long. You can adjust your bets as the game unfolds and feel the thrill from kickoff to the final whistle. The live betting feature lets you stay involved no matter what happens on the field. Plus, knowing that you can place a $5 bet and potentially win $200 in bonus bets for the Super Bowl, that's the icing on the cake, if you ask me. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. Bet just $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Bet with FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of Super Bowl 59. Okay, like I said in the first segment, I had the chance to attend some recent media availabilities for both Auston Matthews and Sidney Crosby. But before we get into that, I have some news to share. I will be in Boston covering Four Nations. And I want to thank you guys for your support, because without your viewership or your listenership, there is no show, and I'm not able to be given big opportunities like this. I'm really excited to see the best on best tournament and see some of the greatest skill from around the hockey world. I'm really looking forward to it, and I can't wait to get to TD Garden to see the games up close and personal. So just wanted to share that bit of news. All right, let's get into some Four Nations news. Auston Matthews recently spoke to the media. He was named team captain for Team USA, and I had the chance to ask him about his assessment on Jack Hughes and also Quinn Hughes. Here's what he had to share with me.
Yeah, I mean, the feelings, definitely mutual. Jack's a special player. He's a guy that obviously is very dynamic, and with the roster that we have, we got lots of skill, lots of talent, lots of depth. But he's a guy that obviously is, one of the superstars in this league that is dangerous anytime he's out there. And with himself, Quinn, both kind of in that similar regard with how dynamic they are. It's not always fun playing against these guys on any given night. So it's going to be pretty cool to be playing on the same team, and whether we're on the same line or not, it's just going to be fun to spend some time, get to know them a little bit more, play with them, and just kind of see how it goes.
First, some background. Jack was quoted to say that he'd be willing to play wing in order to play on the same line as Auston Matthews. And similar to what Auston said in his soundbite, whether or not that comes into fruition, we're just going to have to wait and see. But he has the utmost respect for Jack Hughes. I'll just say this. Jack Hughes is, in fact, a superstar player. And the fact that Auston Matthews, who without a shadow of a doubt is a superstar player in this league, has won the Hart Trophy in the past, put up 69 goals last season, is a captain for Team USA. If he's saying that Jack Hughes is a superstar, then damn it, Jack Hughes is a superstar. So just wanted to share that soundbite with you guys. Now, let's move on to Sid the Kid. I asked Sidney Crosby his thoughts on Four Nations and how it can potentially grow the game. Here's what he had to share with me.
Yeah, I mean, it's, I said it earlier, it's been a while since we've been able to play, these kind of best on best international hockey. So if you look at the rosters, I think there's a lot to get excited about when you look at that, and you look at the matchups and best on best, everyone competing against one another internationally. For people that are hockey fans, that's what you love to see. So, I think for that reason alone, and the fact that it's been a while, we'll just add to it.
I know a lot of people have their thoughts and concerns when it comes to Four Nations, because people have been saying that it's just a cash grab. Is it a gimmick? It's been taking them a long time to release merchandise. Will the overall product actually be good? I'm still going to stick to what I said a few months back when this was first announced. I'm really excited for Four Nations, and I get it. Team Russia is not involved in it. There's a lot of talent that won't be featured in it. So, for example, the great eight, Alexander Ovechkin, he's on the verge of breaking Wayne Gretzky's all-time goals record. And we already know the situation for Team Russia and why they can't compete in international play. But I'm not going to get into that. The point is Ovechkin is not in this tournament. Leon Draisaitl, he's not in this tournament because Germany doesn't have a team. And I was watching a YouTube video saying like, well, maybe you can get like a team Europe or something like that. So that way more talent is featured in this product. But for the time being, sticking to what we got, I'm really excited for it because similar to what Sidney told me, it's been a while since we've been able to see NHL talent compete in a best on best tournament. And this is sort of a prelude to what's going to happen next year when the Winter Olympics comes around. And for the first time in a few years, the NHL will allow its players to compete in it. So that's just my thing. I think it's still a great ordeal. I think it's going to be a great event, just getting all this talent from all over the world competing under one roof or two roofs since it's taking place in both Montreal and Boston. But digressing a little bit, I get the concerns. It's a new product, but here's the point I made. Something had to change, at least for right now, because the NHL All-Star Game, it's become just for show. Like the players don't even care. At this point, when you're named an All-Star, not just in the NHL, but just other sports in general, it seems more titular because when the players compete, they're not putting their best foot forward. They're not really giving 100% effort like we see in the NBA when you see the All-Star Game in recent years. It's just a layup line. It's just all offense, no defense, to the point where the NBA had to make drastic changes to their All-Star Game format, and I absolutely hate it. I love what the NHL is doing because let's put something on the line, something more than just like a titular title. You are playing for your country, and this is a preview as to what's going to happen next year at the Winter Olympics. So let's get excited about that. I'm looking forward to seeing what Team USA can do because they got Connor Hellebuck, who is by far the best goalie in the NHL right now. Numbers don't lie. He's going to win the Vezina Trophy this year, barring anything catastrophic happening. You got both Hughes brothers, and Quinn is the reigning Norris Trophy winner. You got both Tkachuk brothers. Matthew won the Stanley Cup a few months back. Devil's Discourse was begging the front office to pursue Brady Tkachuk, even though it wasn't going to happen. You got Auston Matthews, the captain, leading the charge. He recorded 69 goals last year. Yes, this is a gimmick, but not all gimmicks are bad. I think this is a good gimmick, and I think we're going to see something more at stake, which is you are representing your country and you are playing for the flag on your sweater. So I don't know how ticket sales are. Since I'm credentialed for the event, I don't need to buy a ticket, but at least from what I'm seeing so far, I'm excited for the event. That's all I got to say. But again, it's not my final call. You can obviously have your own opinion. It's subjective, but just based on what I've been observing so far, I think it's going to be a fun time in the NHL, and I think this can definitely grow the game with the Winter Olympics right around the corner. Okay, I said it in the first segment, but a major trade took place in the NBA where Luka Doncic, a 25-year-old superstar, was traded to the Los Angeles Lakers of all teams for Anthony Davis, who is a Hall of Famer, but he's in his 30s. And it seemed like this trade just came out of nowhere. And I've been watching sports my whole life. Baseball, basketball, hockey, football. I don't think I've seen a trade this major in a long time. Like, I was stunned. I was flabbergasted. My mouth was on the floor. I was just in disbelief. And I'm a Lakers fan. And now you're pairing Luka Doncic next to LeBron James. I'll just say he's one of the greatest basketball players ever, because if I call him the GOAT, a lot of you are going to come at me, but get with the times. Digressing a little bit, I was seeing a lot of people bringing up the question, what is that like in NHL terms? And honestly, I don't know. I guess it's the equivalent of the Devils trading away Jack Hughes for an already established all-star, but an older all-star. Jack Hughes is in his 20s. He has his whole career ahead of him. Even though I do think he's a superstar in this league, he still has a long way to go. And I think he can definitely rack up the accolades, but I don't really know. But why am I talking about this? Well, I jokingly shared on social media that, look, with everything that's been going on, what are your best trade packages for the Devils to get Quinn Hughes? Because a lot of people continue to push Fitzgerald in the front office to make a move of their own, because the Rangers reunited with JT Miller, a player that was somewhat linked to the Devils. The Flyers got Andrei Kuzmenko. We already saw that the Hurricanes made a big move getting Mikko Rantanen. What are the Devils going to do? Because don't look now, the Blue Jackets are not that far behind for third place in the Metro, and the Devils are a little inconsistent. Obviously, it's all jokes, and I guess theoretically anything can happen. I don't really know. And Jim Rutherford even went out and said that if the Canucks go full rebuild, if they start completely over, Quinn Hughes wants no part in it. He would want out. So it's just like, what if the Devils become a buyer for Quinn Hughes? That's a pipe dream. And obviously, like I said, it was not meant to be taken seriously. It was just a joke. But the sentiment doesn't change, which is the Devils do need to make a move of their own. But let me just pump the brakes once again. I know I sound like a broken record when I say this, but I've been saying it ad nauseum on this show, which is the Devils do, in fact, need to make a move. But I don't think they're in a position to make a blockbuster move. What do I mean by that? Well, there's a decent amount of players that have no movement clauses, no trade clauses. The only player that is serviceable in a trade is Dawson Mercer, Shimon Nemitz, Seamus Casey. But obviously the driving factor would be Mercer because he has no clauses attached to his contract. And I guess the Devils would be willing to move on from him. Decent player. What could you get for him? I don't really know. But the Devils are running out of tradable assets. And I don't know if people are going to take a flyer on Nemitz or Casey, but that's just my opinion. The Devils need to get bottom six depth. And getting Eric Holla back is definitely a bonus because Justin Dowling should not be an everyday player. But I just want everyone to know that I do want the Devils to make a move of their own, but let's not go crazy here. And like I said, I'm guilty of stirring the pot a little bit because on social media, I was like, send me your best trade packages for Quinn Hughes in response as to what's been going on in the NBA. But let's not lose sight of the obvious, which is the Devils have a lot of players on their roster who have no movement clauses, no trade clauses, modified no trade clauses. I don't think the Devils are in a position to make such a big move. We'll see what happens, but I think the course of action, and this has been reported by Pierre LeBrun and also James Nichols of New Jersey Hockey Now, which is the Devils are going to stay on the course and they're going to see who's available on the bottom six. It comes with patience, guys, and there's only 3 games remaining before we head into the Four Nations break. So I think the Devils are just going to focus on that for the time being, go into the break, and then reassess everything. But let me know your thoughts. What kind of move do you want to see the Devils make? And I'm curious, share your thoughts on Four Nations. What do you think of the product? Do you think it's going to be a success or do you think it's going to be a flop? Leave a comment down below if you're watching on YouTube. If you're listening on podcast streaming service, hit me up on my personal X page app at TreyMatt4 or the show's X page app at Locked On Devils. As for today's episode, that's what I'm going to have for you. Continue to stay safe. Have a wonderful day, New Jersey. Go Devils. I'll catch you guys next episode. Thanks for listening once again.